There are moments in your life that define you, that shape your path and give your life meaning. Having children, getting married, or moving into a larger garage. The garage being obviously the most significant of these milestones. And so care must be taken to ensure that you get the most out of your garage. Sure, it's bigger than the last one, but you can't just vomit all your stuff into the space and expect it to work out. The smarter you are about your space, the more space you'll have. The more space you have, the more bad ideas you can bring to life. The garage came with this large storage area hanging from the ceiling, henceforth referred to as the Hobbit Hut. Initially, I was going to remove it and maybe rebuild it, but the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. I kind of wish the bottom was a little higher. I would prefer that it stick out 2 feet instead of 3, but it's here, so I'm going to leave it. At some point, I'll need to go up in the attic and see how it's mounted so I can be sure that it won't collapse when I put 1,000 pounds of stuff on it, or I could just pile it on and see what happens. I am paying for homeowner's insurance after all. It is conveniently just high enough to shove my tool chest under there and barely enough space for some power tools on top, which is nice. The fact that it's 3 feet deep instead of 2 feet makes for some wasted space in the back, but it's already built, so I'll keep it. Anyway, it's getting organized. I pulled off the ugly sliding doors from the front. I also took the boards off the side so I can have more access here. Hopefully I can get everything that needs to be stored in the garage into this area. Then I can get rid of these shelves and I'll have even more space. I also have this workbench. This was the table that the land speed car was built on, but since that's mostly assembled, I put it on the floor and the table is now a workbench. It is currently not clean, but we'll get to that later. One of the best ways to organize your garage is to put lots of stuff either on the walls or hanging from the ceiling or both. That's kind of what the Hobbit Hut is doing. It's also what these guys are doing. Excellent use of space here, although I should probably consider buying a flame cabinet for all this flammable stuff. But hey, that's what homeowner's insurance is for. Speaking of flames, do you know where your fire extinguisher is? I'm always shocked when I go into someone's garage and they either don't have a fire extinguisher or don't know where one is. I recommend 2 at least on opposite sides of the garage. Maybe just get a 4-pack and throw one in the kitchen. Anyway, wall mounting. It's good. Buy some of these and hang some stuff from the wall. A bonus is that hanging wheels on the wall looks kind of awesome. By the way, you want to anchor heavy stuff onto the studs. You can use drywall anchors, but if it's really heavy or if you want some extra peace of mind, just screw into the studs. A stud finder will help, but not as much as a magnet. You really just need to find the drywall screws that go into the studs, then you know where the stud is. I use this. It's called a stud ball, which is a mediocre porn name, but an excellent stud finder. It's about 1/5 the cost of this stud finder and about 5 times better at finding studs. Just make sure you're finding screws and not electrical conduit. Have you ever looked at your wall and thought, boy, it'd be really awesome if you were also a CNC machine? Me too. Remember that CNC router I bought a while ago for a few $1,000s so I could save a few $100s on a project? Well, I have to find a place for it, and I was thinking, why not mount it on the wall? This is not totally uncommon. In fact, the company that sells these also sells a kit to wall mount it. I had previously built a sturdy tabletop for my CNC router. These are sometimes called torsion tables. It's basically a sheet of plywood on the top and bottom sandwiched between a grid of wood strips all glued together. So I really just need to hang this on the wall. I put 2 bolts into the studs to hold up the bottom, and then I was just going to lift the platform up onto these bolts and then climb up the stepladder and screw the top into the wall. Then I could go back and run lag bolts into the studs. Well, I encountered 2 problems on this. One, this thing is really heavy. Too heavy. Also, the wall is not particularly flat, which is weird because that's kind of what walls are supposed to do. But it got me thinking, do I really want this on the wall? What if I put it lower on the wall? Or what if I put it on that wall? What if I put it on this wall and then change my mind and later want it on that wall? Can I put it on a wall but also make it portable so I can move it from wall to wall? Kind of. I need a rotatey flippy table, something that stores vertical but can be rotated flat when needed. I've seen a few of these online and they look like they would take a lot of time and effort to build, but I bet I can make one for like 20% of the effort. I drew up the basic idea in CAD. I have the tabletop and it's pretty rigid, so I should be good to go there. I just need to pivot about 2/3 of the way back. For that, I'll just get some 4x4 wood studs and screw them together in a triangle with a 2x4 hypotenuse. Then I can screw it all together with casters on the bottom. For the pivoty part, I got some bearings. Through the bearings, I'll use some steel tube. I could have bought inch steel tube, but while I was at the hardware store, I just grabbed some of this galvanized pipe. Unfortunately, it's about 50 thousandths of an inch too big, so I chucked up the bearings in the lathe and lathed them down. With the lathe. Did some lathing. On the lathe. Once that was done, I bolted the bearings to the 4x4 posts and set the tabletop in place. This was when a couple of problems appeared. One, the pivot was too high. This made for a good table height, but it meant it was going to be really hard to flip this table up flat. I need the pivot closer to the center of the table, so I moved the axis down. The second problem is that the center of mass is way too far back. The table wants to just fall over backward. This will be less of a problem when the weight of the actual CNC rails are on the table, but it's a little unnerving now. So I just unscrewed my triangles and slid the whole thing forward a bit. The table does need legs to keep it flat, so I leveled out the table with a floor jack and a bubble level, then I screwed in some hinged 2x4s to fold down his legs. To keep these up out of the way when I don't need them, I added some magnets. After all that, all I had to do was put the rails on top and screw them down. I also need to make a fixture that keeps the y-axis from sliding down as I fold it, but for now, I'm just going to use a strap. And there it is, a perfectly adequate flippy rotatey table thing. I still need to sand off the corners and maybe paint it. I could have rotated this table 90 degrees and it would have taken up a little less floor space in its folded position. Could have also made it to where you could flip it upside down and have an extra work table, but you know what? This is not bad for a few hours of work. So there it is, a garage workspace. So much space. But I do have several vehicles that are not in the garage. Most of them, in fact, are not in the garage. Perhaps I want to be able to park them in here. Well, this is a 3-car garage and I own 5 cars. Also 2 motorcycles, 2 bicycles, and a giant half-finished scooter. But 3 of the cars are small. One is only 2 feet wide. Maybe I can fit them all in here. Let's find out. The 2 big vehicles are the 4Runner and the Jag. The 4Runner is tall, but its footprint is smaller than it looks. It would be smaller than the Jag if not for this obnoxious wheel hanging off the back. I can shove the Jag over to the left, probably sandwich the land speed car between that and the 4Runner. The smart car is short but wider than the S600, so I can maybe stack them and shove the bikes in the side here. I'll leave this half-finished scooter thing over against the wall, but to do that I'll need to move the CNC machine. I can probably move this toolbox with the lathe on it over to this wall. I just have to kind of nudge this and then nudge this and then jam it in there. Unfortunately, this puts my convenient small parts organizers in a place where I can just barely not remove them, making them not so convenient. But perhaps I can remove this handle and get just enough space back. That is a task for another day. Today's task is getting all of my vehicles into the garage. And there you have it. Everything fits. Barely any room to spare. Possibly room for one more motorcycle behind the Jag. I might have to buy one and find out. But in any case, if anyone asks, I do not have a 3-car garage. I have a 5-car, 2 motorcycle, 2 bicycle, 1 half-finished comically large scooter garage. All of my vehicles fit in there, except I forgot the trailer. All of my vehicles fit in there, and I only had to put 1 or 2 things in the backyard. There is a lot of extra space up high, which means I can probably make use of something like this if I need more storage. I could maybe get a lift in here, but the problem is that the ceiling is too short to get useful car storage out of a lift. Also, lifts take up a lot of space and they're just always there. Even the portable ones are space hogs. I'll stick with the floor jack and the jack stands for now. This is the Lockpicking Engineer, and what I have for you today is a padlock that was left by the previous tenants of my house. I did not get the combination to this lock when I got the keys, and I can't open my side gate without it. Fortunately for me, this is a Master Lock 175, which can be bypassed literally faster than it can be opened by putting in the combination. All you need is a thin piece of metal. We just slide it between the number wheels here, and then push it down. This unlatches the mechanism of the lock, bypassing the combination, and we have an open gate. Let's do that again so we know that it's not a fluke. That's all I have for you today. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And as always, have a nice day. Thank you. A garage for all my cars and bikes sounds great, but the truth is I use my garage to build stuff more than store stuff, so I really need another place for the cars. 2 of them go in the driveway, the 4Runner and the Smart. The S600 and the Jag need a place too, preferably covered, preferably in the backyard, and so we have the tent. I originally bought one of these guys, but I realized two things pretty quickly. One is that the pointy bit is too tall and it looks really obnoxious from the street, and I'm not entirely sure this meets the codes of the city I live in. Also, it's too big for one car and too small for two, so I kept the top part and the rear wall, bought some of these junction things, and just kind of remade it how I wanted it. The problem with this is that the top is too flat now, and a flat top is just going to gather lots and lots of rain. So I took these table legs I had lying around and just kind of hose clamped them into the middle posts, making the fanciest double top tent you've ever seen. The problem with this is that the wind is going to chafe the top on these plates up here, but I have a solution for that. At some point, I will flip these guys upside down and make little posts going up that aren't hose clamped in, and this will be a lot nicer, but that is a problem for future Matt. The S600 fits in here just fine, but the Jag is a little too long and a little too wide. But the S600 is very narrow, so I could just steal some space from the Honda and give it to the Jag. I also kind of just pulled the back here out at an angle, so the Jag can kind of just wedge in there. One of these days, I'll look into putting a metal building out here, but for now, this thing is doing its job just fine. Also, there's an empty spot here, just the right size for a new project car. No, not right now, but soon, maybe. I really got to finish up the other ones first. It used to be that you had to impress people to get people to watch your show. Now you just have to impress the algorithm. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. All hail the algorithm.